Hi mathematicians, Mrs. Becker here. Would you please pause the video and get the following things to be ready for math? You will need a pencil, you will need your division packet open to page 48 and 49. You'll need some scratch paper to show your work, and if you have either a digital multiplication chart or a regular multiplication chart, you'll need that. So please pause the video and get those things for me. Our I can statement for today is we are going to be continuing to work with the partial quotient division strategy, except today we are going to be using decimals. This is an example of my work from last week where we made that partial quotient bracket, and then we set up our number table off to the side, or our ratio table off to the side, where we multiplied by ones, twos, and fives. The difference with our problems today is that we are going to have a decimal number, and then we are also going to move our ratio table up a little bit and be putting in decimal numbers, tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So building off of what we did last week, and instead of having whole numbers, we are going to be having decimal numbers. Let's go ahead and get a start. You should be on page 48. We have 4 problems that we are going to be doing today. Some of them you're going to be doing with me, and then the other problems you will be doing on your own. So what I'm going to ask you to do is because we need a little bit more workspace, I am going to ask you to copy these problems down on some scratch paper, and then we are going to be taking pictures of each of these as separate little problems in Seesaw. So let's copy down the first problem, and we're going to set up our ratio table. So this is page 48. I'm just going to set up my paper, page 48, and I'm going to label this problem A, and this one will be problem B. So if you could do the same right now, that would be great. And then I'm just going to copy this problem down, 280 and 4/10. And then I'm going to make my nice long bracket here, divided by 4. And then once I do that, then I'm going to go ahead and set up my ratio tables. So I'm going to start with what I know from last week. I did ones, tens, and hundreds. Then I did twos, 20s, and 200s. And then I did fives, 50, and 500. Now, I'm going to multiply those by 4. Now, before I get too far into this, I did tell you that there's a little bit of a difference. So instead of just stopping at the 1, I'm actually going to come up here and I'm going to do 1/10, 1 100th, and 1 1,000th. And then each time that I do that, I am multiplying by 4. So this first time around, we're going to set our ratio table up, and we're going to have all of these numbers in. So why don't you pause the video and get all of this ratio table set up for me. Do this now, please. All right, so I've got all of my numbers set up here. I just need to go through and put my answers in. I've also highlighted just the first base problem, I'm doing air quotes, base problem in each little series of numbers, and that just helps me know how many zeros that I'm going to tag either in front of the decimal or behind the whole number that I have. Now I'm just going to start with I'm just going to kind of ignore the new stuff. I'm going to come back to that. So let's just start with what we did last week, starting with ones, tens, and hundreds. So 4 times 1, that would be 4. If I have this, then that would be 40, and this would be 400. 4 times 2, or 2 times 4, that's 8. And then my next answer would be 80, and then I would have 800. 5 times 4, that's a 20. So 5 times 4, or 50 times 4, excuse me, would be 200. And then 500 times 4 would be a 20 with 2 zeros behind it, or 2,000. So that's the same thing that we were working on last week. We had a couple of days with those types of just setting up our ratio table. Now let's go up to the new stuff. Okay, and really this isn't new because we worked a lot with place value earlier this year. So I'm going to start with 4 times 1/10. So that is going to be 4/10. Now, I have that 4 times 1 right here, but in front of it, I need to tag a 0. So I'm going to have, my answer is going to be in the hundredths, but a 0 needs to come in front of the 4. For this one, I need 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. The 4 times 1,000th is going to go all the way over here, and then I mark those zeros actually in front of where the 4 is. So now I've got 4/10ths, 400ths, and 4,000ths. Now I'm all set to do the same exact process that I did last week. So let's go ahead and begin. So I'm going to start over here with 280. And when I'm looking for a number that's really close to 280 but not over, I'm going to find a nice big 200 right here. So then remember that I write that 200 underneath here, but because I'm working with a decimal, I'm going to mark that decimal, and then that 0 is going to be my placeholder. I do want to honor that 10th spot that is there. And then I'm going to go ahead and subtract. The number that goes outside of my bracket would be the 50. So 4 times the 50 equals that 200. Subtract. And I have 80 that's left. So now I'm going to look, and I'm going to try to find a number that's close to 80 but not over, and whoa, I've got a nice number right here. That's 80. So 80, I do put the decimal down and a 0. So that is a little bit of a change from last week where you have to put that decimal point and then a 0 behind when you're subtracting. And then 20 would go out here, and then I subtract. I have a 4, my decimal point, and then these are just zeros. Now I'm looking for 4/10ths, and I see a decimal, and I only have zeros in front of it, and look right up here, I have 4/10ths right on the nose. So then I look, and it would be 1/10th. That would go out here. 4/10ths goes there, and then I have 0 for my remainder. Now I do need to add all of these up, but I do need to be careful because I am working with that decimal. So I know that if I add 50 plus 20, that's going to get me the whole number of 70. So I have 70.0, and then I need to add that 1/10th on. So you just have to be careful when you're adding these to just make sure that you line up the numbers in the correct spot. So my answer would be 70 and 1/10th. Would you take a picture of this right now, and then we are going to upload this in Seesaw, and then in a moment we'll move on to the next slide and do the next problem together. Take a picture of this, please.